Good morning, everyone. I'm Super Phiz. It is Tuesday, November 24th, 2020. We've just reached 12 p.m. UTC, which is a benchmark time for the deposit contract, basically for the beacon chain. We're currently 7 days before the minimum genesis time of the beacon chain network. Ben, can you tell me what, it's an odd time. And so I have a few guests who I'm glad you all have joined us. Adrian and Ben are from Teku, and Tyler, do you have an affiliation, or are you just are you?
No affiliation. I've worked for multiple projects, and I worked for Consensus for a while, but no, I don't have any affiliation at this time.
Okay, so basically we have some guests who are very knowledgeable about this process in general. Ben, if I can get you to give us a good idea of what this 7 days before Genesis, or before min Genesis time means.
Yeah, so number of things happening now. So we've got enough deposits in before the deadline. So I just got the Genesis data. We've got 21,063 validators that will form the Genesis validator set. And the Genesis event will happen at midday plus 23 seconds in a week's time. So we have a week now, which is a period designed for the client teams to bake in some configuration stuff like this Genesis information I've just shared into the various clients, and also to set up boot nodes for the network and for everybody to get their clients up and running on the final release versions. So we've got 7 days. We started off with 2 days on some of the test nets. That was a bit short. We moved to 4 days. That was still a bit short. 7 days should be plenty of time. It also gives us time to plan the parties and launch events. So look out for those in a week's time. So basically, bottom line is, in the next day or two, all of the client teams will get out a release, which will bake in the start parameters, and everybody running on mainnet needs to upgrade their own clients before the 1st of December.
Awesome. And so we know that the deposit contract needed 16,384 deposits, and that was opened on November 3rd. Adrian, we have 21,063. Can you give me an idea how did those extra 5,000 validators slip in?
Yeah, so basically what happens is that you have 2 conditions to be met. Ben has a fantastic article on this. The first is that you reach that minimum number of validators. And the second is that you have an ETH1 block with a timestamp that when you add the Genesis delay, those 7 delays, is after the min Genesis time. So until you get that block, which is now about 3 minutes in the past or so, whatever that time winds up being, until you get that block, whatever deposits come in are counted as part of that Genesis event, and just go straight in. After that block, all of the deposits that come after that will go through the queue. So they're still valid deposits. They will still become validators. They'll probably become validators quite quickly as well. There are four new validators that can be onboarded after Genesis per epoch. So it's about 900 a day. So yeah, that number of initial validators is just strictly a minimum. Anyone who gets in before that minimum Genesis time cutoff, which has just gone past, you're in. You're a Genesis validator. Congratulations.
Awesome. And so for the next 7 days, the people who submit deposits, let's say that I'm a casual user and I have some Ether, and we just crossed this threshold, and wow, it was a bigger success at the last minute than anyone expected, and now I'm ready to get in. What happens if I deposit funds into the deposit contract today? And anyone's welcome to answer this.
I'll give it a shot. So what will happen then is initially the Genesis block has an ETH1 data root in it, which says this is the ETH1 block that ETH2 recognizes. The beacon chain is saying that's where ETH1 is up to, and we've all agreed on that. So there is a voting period for validators. I can't remember the numbers, someone might be able to fill them in, but it's a fairly long time where you need to get 50% of the validators to propose blocks in that time to agree on this ETH1 block, and then it becomes the current one. Once that happens, then all the deposits up to that block can be included in the beacon chain. Those amounts get credited to the validator balances, and you can become an active validator at that point with the queue. So you don't become an active, you become a pending validator at that point, and you get a validator index. And then, as I mentioned before, you get 4 validators onboarded per epoch, and you kind of in that queue. So you'll know at what epoch you'll be activated then, and it becomes fairly straightforward. So it is a slow process, but basically the best way I've seen it explained is that at every juncture, if there is a choice between protecting the chain and making it more secure, or making your life easier and nicer and fun, ETH2 picks security. And so that's why there is that slow process.
That's one of the things that I like to drive home is ETH2 does not exist, or the beacon chain does not exist to make money for people. That is kind of one of those, oh, I can be a validator, I can be a staker on Ethereum, and Ethereum wants to pay me. To be completely frank, Ethereum does not want to pay you. The beacon chain is going to pay the minimum that it can pay you to encourage you to secure the network. And so there is a payment for that. And at this time, I bet we could actually find out what the initial return rate is likely to look like for these 21,000 validators. But it's going to be the minimum that people can be incentivized with in order to actively contribute to the network. And so that has a lot of kind of network features, like it will reduce our inflation over time, reduce or maintain a low supply while keeping the network as secure as it can be. I think that a lot of people are worried, concerned, like, what do I do now? Have I missed my opportunity? Tyler, have they missed their opportunity to participate as a staker?
No, absolutely not. This initial group is a brave vanguard willing to kind of charge into the breach because there are still significant risks, even though we've run multiple test nets, even though, many of us are highly confident that this is going to work out. Genesis is kind of like a risk cliff. And, I can speak just from kind of hearsay, right? I get to talk to a lot of old hands around the Ethereum community, and there's a lot of ether that is waiting for Genesis before it deploys as validators onto the network. I mean, when I talk to, we encourage people that if they can run their own node at home, they should. But if you happen to have a larger stack of ether, not just 32, but multiples of 32, and you are not a super technical person, just an enthusiastic member of the community, then many of those types of people should explore the different staking services that can be offered by third parties. Now, when I've talked to a lot of these third parties, they encouraged people to be very conservative about the number of validators they submitted for Genesis. Let's say you wanted to deploy 100 or 500 validators. The staking services and many of the people were like, why don't we start with 5? Right? So I anticipate that this number for Genesis is only the small snowball that starts the avalanche. And people should not look at the returns that they're estimating for staking, they should not use this Genesis number as the return number that they expect over the long term. Will we go down to like almost no returns? Probably not, because this is still locking up your ether for a significant amount of time. But no one should expect that we stay at the Genesis number as the means of calculating your future returns. So there's a lot of ether that's going to be coming in. If you didn't want to participate in Genesis, you haven't missed the mark. Wait until after Genesis and then make your deposits. You'll be a lot safer, but you also won't get the POAP. Sorry.
There will be other POAPs.
There'll be other POAPs.
So I'd like to make a comment about these other staking services. There is definitely a strong market for third-party staking services. And as the EthStaker community, we support the role that those third-party staking services provide. But I've had a bit of an adversarial relationship with them as of late, because we're not ready to endorse any of those services yet, or at least any services that are ready to launch. If anyone is familiar with what we're working on, it's the Ethereum Due Diligence Committee, and that is a group of experts and knowledgeable community members who are working together to look at these third-party offerings and say, so not necessarily to give a subjective opinion, but to learn how they work, how they're structured, and to give them a fair rank, whether they are considered to be a likely safe product, a cautionary product, or a do not go product. And so I would really encourage anyone who is getting ready to stake, that you're thinking about using a service, that you wait a week or two and see what the results from the first Ethereum Due Diligence Committee, what the first batch of information they put out. And we're kind of expecting that to be around the first week of the staking network. You can learn more about that due diligence committee at ethddc.org. That's the Ethereum Due Diligence Committee. If you click the About Us on that page, you can see the meeting videos and kind of what the scope and purpose is. So that is my caution, that while I want people to be involved, I also I don't want people to lose funds. And having done this, some of us have been in this space for 10 years. Like, we have seen so many malicious actors that it's not even a joke anymore. Like, it's expected. Like, I expect there to be, out of the set of third-party staking services, I expect one of them is just absolutely malicious, and they are waiting to collect deposits so that they could disappear with them. And so if you don't know that, if you're not aware of how this works, then the best thing that you can do is just hold your funds for long enough to feel like where you're sending them is a safe place. Anybody have thoughts on that?
I'll just comment because I live in the space quite a bit. I will admit to the community that I'm going to use a third-party staking service in addition to the efforts that I do myself. And doing your due diligence, your technical due diligence is not trivial, especially at this stage, because many of the third-party services aren't ready yet to deploy. They are still scrambling to be ready. And you should look at a lot of different factors. It shouldn't be, at this point, it should not be a one and done, just talk to one person and give them your ether. Superphys is absolutely correct in that. We live in a Byzantine environment. You should expect that people are trying to scam you. Do your due diligence. Look for people who have been active and contributing in the space for a long amount of time leading up to this, not the person who showed up on your doorstep offering a great deal, at the last minute. So there's a lot of things to consider. And I applaud the efforts that the ETH staking community is employing to get people good information around staking services. I think that this is going to play a huge role going forward, because I think a lot of people are going to enter our community that don't feel comfortable running their own nodes. And usually, like one node, I think almost anyone can run one node, right? There's some ready-made boxes you can buy that do most of the work for you. But it's when you want to, especially if you're not just a single individual, if you represent a larger group or a larger pool, then you need to be doing your due diligence around how you're going to deploy or how you're going to hire the services for that, because the commitment for staking is not trivial. It requires a deep technical competence beyond a certain threshold.
It's interesting that you say that about how you're going to deploy. I have seen some people that I know and trust who have sort of started small-time consulting businesses, just helping people set up nodes without taking custody of their funds, and while it's they're maintained by you. And so I don't know that any of those people are quite ready to advertise for business yet, but I do think if you look in the community and if you ask around, you can definitely get help setting up your own solo node. And if you're willing to pay for help, then I know that that's available. So one of the things that we need to talk about for the community, for homestakers, and for everyone is kind of the flow over the next week. And I know that Adrian brought up a lot of this, but to reiterate, if you're getting up today and you're checking the deposit contract and you're finding out there are 21,000 validators ready to go, you might be thinking, rush, rush, rush. But the correct steps for you right now are to set up, as a solo staker, to set up your server, make sure it's hardened, and work on your ETH1 data feed. And after those two steps, you get to wait for the clients. The 4 launch-ready clients will be Teku, Lighthouse, Prism, and Nimbus. And you can choose one of those. Some people will have previous experience. If you don't have previous experience, it is generally safe to choose any one of those, and wait until they submit a mainnet release. That should be probably in the next day or two. And that's when you'll actually install your beacon chain and validator client. And then it's just waiting. Each different client has kind of a different status screen for when it's waiting to launch. If I'm on Teku, what would I expect to see if I installed it and I'm just kind of waiting for launch?
It's not very exciting. I'm looking at it now. Every 10 minutes, we print a countdown: 6 days, 23 hours, 49 minutes, 23 seconds until Genesis time. So that's what you'll see. So when you start it up, it will show you that it started up networking, it's looking for peers and its network address. It will show you that the Genesis information has been correctly embedded. And then this countdown starts. And really, that's all you're going to see until the 1st of December, midday UTC. And at that point, everything starts, and it will start tracking slots and creating attestations, receiving attestations, and receiving blocks, all being well.
I have to contradict your perception that that's not an exciting thing, because watching that countdown, I might be able to watch that for 6 days straight.
There's one slight clarification to that. Ben has cheated and hacked the ETH1 follow distance variable. So Ben is about 8 hours ahead of what you will see. So right now, according to ETH2 clients, we haven't reached min Genesis yet, because they're still waiting for those 2,000 blocks. So yeah, in about 7 or 8 hours.
Obviously, you should not as a home user, you should not even have an ETH2 client installed right now. I know that there were pre-releases. I would say the safe thing would be to just remove those and hang on, because what you really want is, so I was going to say it's a mainnet release candidate, but it's really a mainnet release that you'll be looking for to come out on November 24th or November 25th. And each of the clients is announcing their own release. So it's great, exciting. Thoughts from anyone else? Anyone else want to share something?
Get on mailing lists and Discord channels and all of that for whatever client you're using to be notified of updates. There's a normal update coming from, as has been said a few times, from all the client teams in the next day or two. I wouldn't rule out potentially critical last minute updates. We've seen it on some of the test nets, hopefully unnecessary by now, but you never know. So be ready for that. And Teku, we've got a Twitter channel you can subscribe to, and a mailing list as well on the consensus site if you want to get critical update notifications, and other teams will have their own thing set up.
Awesome. That's people should realize that in many ways, while the beacon chain is new and exciting, it is also often referred to as a mainnet candidate chain, meaning that we all feel very excited and confident that this will be the long-standing chain, but there could be problems that need to be fixed along the way. There are definitely going to be road bumps as a new software product, as a new protocol. There are absolutely going to be critical updates for every client. And our responsibility as early validators is to keep our notifications on, to be waiting for those notifications, and to be ready to install patches as quickly as they come out. There's another thing that I have felt the personal need to beat the drum about, and that is my belief when we have main network launch is that there are going to be about 90% of validators online. I think that 10% are still going to be working out what they're going to be doing, or maybe they submitted a deposit without reading through things and didn't actually realize that they needed to do work in order to receive a payment. And those 10% of people are going to be scrambling to figure out how to get online. There's also going to likely be a small group of people who are going to be slashed very early on. And these are people who wanted to have a redundant system. And so they maybe installed a local instance, and then they also installed a cloud instance, and they feel like both of these will give them increased uptime. Does anybody want to talk to me about why it's a very bad idea to install those validator keys in two places? I'll talk about it. I actually learned this, I believe, on the Topaz testnet from Prism. I set up a box and I began validating, and then I decided to take that down and switch my keys to a different box. But I was running the process in Docker, and I think I rebooted the box, Docker restarted, and I was validating at that point in two places. And at that time, I had 32 validators, and I noticed a few hours later that one of them had been slashed, and I was very confused. And someone messaged me to say, "Hey, what's going on?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know." What had happened is that my validator keys were running in two systems at the same time, and it was actually by accident. And because I ran those keys in two places, the network saw that I made the same proposal twice, and someone reported me as having committed a slashable offense. That person collected a bounty, and I was removed from the network. From that point, it became a game, and I installed the validator clients on all of my machines and watched everything get slashed. So as a cautionary tale, don't run your validators in more than one place. It's extremely easy to avoid that. It's better to be offline and leak a little than to try to have that high availability where multiple redundancy, where you end up creating a slashable event, unless, and there are many people who have this advanced knowledge where they have the ability and technical experience to split the keys or to create safely redundant systems. If you know how to do that, obviously this doesn't apply to you. My target audience are first-time home stakers. So, yeah.
I'd probably suggest going even potentially one step further. Clients can do a lot to help protect you from yourself if you only have one copy of the keys anywhere, like on your on running systems. Keep them in cold storage or back up mnemonic. But what a number of clients will do is they'll actually create a lock file beside the key store, which guarantees that only one process at a time runs it. So that it's safe for system D to automatically restart and so on and things like that. As I learned when some of our automation went wrong and I was switching between internal validator and external validator, and they both came up trying to load the keys, and I've done it twice now in 2 days, the lock file saved me, and only one of them could actually load those keys. So I haven't had 20,000 PM validators slashed and had to try and explain that. So the fact that you only have those keys in one place is really useful. If they'd been in 2 copies of the files in different locations, the lock files would have done nothing.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great input. Thank you. So I feel like we've hit the major points that we need to talk about. EthStaker will hold a launch party on a launch viewing party on December 1st at 12 p.m. UTC. We will have an exciting POAP for everyone who attends. We hope to have a lot of exciting and knowledgeable guests. Is there anything else you all would like to share about your experience or the process or information or warnings or any of that? Okay. I would like to thank all of the developers. Teku, I appreciate you guys joining us today. I'd love to thank the EthStakers community for really supporting our initiative to be welcoming first and knowledgeable second. I think that has helped us grow very quickly and welcome people who would otherwise feel like they didn't belong. So thank everyone who contributes to that ethos. Congratulations to the developers, the developing teams, the researchers, to the depositors. Like, this could not at this moment have gone more smoothly. And that's not a prediction of the future, but the fact that this deposit window opened on November 3rd and was very slow and began gaining traction until everyone FOMO'd in, and it's the crypto way. Things are going really well right now, and I'm looking forward to everything in the future. Thanks everyone for joining me. I'm going to end my recording now, and we look forward to seeing you all in a week on December 1st for the launch viewing.